trick them into fighting the battle on your territory. The Athenians were good at this, and they knew they were good at it, and that created hubris. And they think they're so good that they are an exceptional people. When we talk about American exceptionalism, that the laws of history don't apply to us, but the Greeks kind of felt, the Athenians kind of felt that way too. And if you're going to have discussions on what the kids read, those are the two topics to really deal with. And what fascinates me with this book from an essay standpoint, I would cite essays. It would be about the hubris of democracy. How these Greeks create a democratic government, and then in a free, democratic way, they make some really terrible decisions. And particularly in the way they treat their leaders. So there's lots of good stuff in here. We've got the Persians, the Peloponnesians, and the Macedonians as players in the game, but the Athenians are the most important people. There's also stories about their life and their culture. There are individuals here that the students need to know. So it's an adventure story with a changing cast, but important individuals. Individuals who try to accomplish things, individuals who do accomplish things, individuals who cheat, individuals who are very good and then rejected by Athens. It's a darn good story. Now, while you're using this book, and this is not a book that your typical high school student's going to run into in school. That's basically why it was picked. There are maps of battles. Those are the key battles. If there is a battle map, pay attention to that battle. There is a glossary in the back of the book. Look at the back of the book first. There's also a list of sources, modern and ancient. And though most of the ancient sources you're not going to care about, occasionally there's someone in the ancient sources who's also a character in the story. And then there's the chronology. The weakness in this book, the part that I had trouble with, was he doesn't refer to the dates a lot. So I'm kind of confused on when something is happening. If you look through the chronology first, and kind of a preview of coming attractions, I think that will help immensely in understanding what he's writing about. And he is a little bit unclear on the difference between the first Peloponnesian War and the second or Great Peloponnesian War. And in the questions, that's what I call him. Because I think he kind of blurs the distinction there. Yes, the second or Great one, both. Some of the questions are about Athenian government. And the idea of a government by naval people is the basic concept of the book. And his thesis, of course, is that here are these men who are rowing the boats, and they are citizens. They are not slaves. Do not get into the cartoons or to Ben-Hur. That's a whole different concept. These are citizens who go out and man these boats, and then they demand equal rights. And that's where you get it. That's the basic beginning theme in this. Not just government, but the politics. The Areopagites were the wealthy landowners who did not approve of democracy. That's a concept that kids may have trouble getting used to. These people don't approve of democracy. They didn't want people to vote. I mean, we have those people in our history too. William Henry Harrison was one of them. He didn't want Indiana to become state because he thought we would let everybody vote. Well, these rich landowners were opposed to democracy. And they're going to be there trying to undermine it. And at times they'll overthrow it. And then there are going to be the people who support democracy, and they're going to try to export it to other countries, to other city-states. Does that sound familiar? We also, of course, have some vocabulary: the triremes, the ships, the hoplites, certain kinds of soldiers, battles. Salamis, of course, is perhaps one of the two most famous battles that the Greeks fight. Personal rivalries. People who don't like each other. People who compete. You might have noticed that the two most prominent Mormons in the United States politics, the majority leader of the Senate, the Republican candidate for president, don't like each other. Well, Socrates and Demosthenes did not like each other. And the Philippics are the speeches that Demosthenes gave warning the people of the dangers of Philip of Macedonia. And Socrates thinks that all he wants to do is cause a war. Where there's democracy, there's debate. Now, of course, living in the future here, we can look back and go, oh, we know which guy was right. How do you get the students to get in the time period? And how would you know he was going to be right? Naval warfare, the use of linen, not just in sails, which you might imagine, but the book describes how these ships are put together, and they're actually sewn together. There's here we are in almost landlocked Indiana. You probably don't have a lot of kids who know a lot about sailing, but by the time they get done with this, they may have some kids who want to start rowing teams. These four men, as leaders of Athens, involved in the war, John Hale kind of summarizes their impact on these wars and the peace that ended the wars. That's a pretty good review question. You've got a peace treaty, and you've got four guys to know. That should be very obvious that peace treaty and those four guys are going to show up in some other questions. This is my favorite guy. Alcibiades. I do not know how this guy had time to make history. He was so busy with the women of the Mediterranean, including the wife of the Spartan king. He betrayed people, he double-dealed, he is a terrible person. And you're just amazed by him. And he is in a time period with these other four guys. Now, the two Persian governors are obviously minor characters. But they're important for the battles, and you've got these Spartan leaders, you've got Persian leaders, and then you got this guy who's playing everybody with everybody else. And I think he's fascinating. He's, he might remind you of Aaron Burr, but Aaron Burr was just a small-time scoundrel compared to this guy. Again, maps. Every one of those arrows points to a significant battle. The Battle of Syracuse, there for sea. You're in the Gulf of Corinth. There above the Gulf of Nissus. A little bit about geopolitics. And this is where geography comes in again. Did you know that there were Greeks in Russia? I was in Russia a few years ago and in the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, and all of a sudden there's this huge section of Greek stuff dug up in Russia.